Can a week abroad change the world with Kimberly at globeaware? Life-changing event will have a profound impact on people. It can make you or break you. And I want to empower you, all you listeners out there, that you deserve to feel empowered and that those events will make you instead of breaking you. It's okay to break in the process, but don't let it be the finality of who you'll be in the next stage of your life. Separation, divorce, sickness, betrayal, hurt, you name it. Today's guest is here to empower you and help you make it out more beautiful. Welcome aboard the podcast, A Woman's Spark with Janik, a place to show women how powerful they are and remind them of the spark that they carry. The strength that gets us up every time we fall. A place to feel seen and understood. When we don't fully have what it takes to get back up on a hard day, or we don't feel seen, we feel alone. This podcast is to help you heal and become the best version of yourself during the roller coaster of life. I want to build a community of women that wants to help one another and inspire each other to become stronger and more united as we were born to be. Today, we're going to touch on the subject of new beginning after a life event, after divorce, after separation. Did you know that women volunteering abroad experience significant personal, social, and economic benefits with a broader impact on communities when they do that abroad volunteering or regular volunteering? International volunteering offers practical work experience in cross-cultural environment, often boosting future careers for career prospect and leadership skills. Mental health and well-being. Women who volunteer abroad often report improved happiness, life satisfaction, and resilience, as well as reduced social and isolation and stress. Volunteering helps women gain skills, financial independence, and entrepreneurial capacity, supporting stronger female leadership in communities and combating cycles of poverty. Women make up an estimated 57% of global volunteer workforce, with even greater shares in informal volunteer roles. Did you know that 75% of international volunteers, including women, describe their experience as transformational, with major life changes attributed to the volunteering? Today's guest is Kimberly Haley Coleman from globeaware. She founded and is the executive director of globeaware, a nonprofit organization based in the US and Canada that coordinates volunteer opportunities abroad. She founded globeaware to provide meaningful and organized volunteering experiences for busy Westerners who want to give back in short-term projects internationally. We're going to welcome her back after this short break. Welcome back to A Woman's Spark podcast with Janik. On the show today, we're going to welcome Kimberly Haley Coleman. Kimberly is the founder and executive director of globeaware, a nonprofit organization based in the US and Canada that coordinates volunteer opportunities abroad and offers short-term service projects in over 25 countries since 2000. The motivation she had to start globeaware came from her own experience, struggling to find meaningful work, short-term volunteer opportunities while traveling for business. She co-founded globeaware with a group of like-minded professionals in medicine, construction, sustainability, and communication to make volunteering accessible, impactful, and enjoyable. globeaware now operates in over 20 countries, mobilizing volunteers to contribute to sustainable community project. Please welcome our Spark of the Day, Kimberly Haley Coleman. Hi, Kimberly.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
It's really nice to have you on board. I'm really impressed with what you started because a lot of people want to give back and just find that they don't have enough time to do it. And by being able to go on a short-term volunteering project, I feel like you could really answer or solve a lot of people's problems, because people want to give back and they don't know how, and they're stuck in the, oh, wow, I have to take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months off work or off family in order to go and help out. So please tell us how you got started and why you started globeaware.
Right, and I do think you're so right about that. I think fundamentally, universally, it's amazing how we all are, uh is innately called upon to serve, and yet we might have lost connection with the joy that provides us when we have the opportunity to do it. And that's perhaps just because just getting by in our regular everyday lives takes so much effort. So, anyway, yeah, so I did begin this, actually, along these lines. I was working a regular corporate job that just happened to take me outside of North American borders a lot. And after I'd already seen all the traditional tourist things to see, I started wanting to, give back and connect, and I just found that was so hard. It was so challenging. Nobody really wanted to do it unless I had a lot longer to give because of the amount of time it takes to train and supervise, oversee someone doing whatever project it is they do. And so it was because of that that I just started on a one-on-one basis, trying to see how I could help or give back, fix, plant, work alongside someone, and I mean with no skills. I am not a carpentry person. I'm not. I have nothing to give in terms of any of these innate skills. I'm not an electrician, a carpenter. I really nothing. But I found that first of all, it's amazing what uh, you see from someone when you're able to look at challenges side by side with them, how they will share their lives with you, and how easy it is to give back just by having the willingness to give. And I know that many of us in North America are very accustomed to whether it's fundraising drives, donations, charitable walks. There are so many organizations doing good work, but it also can disconnect you a bit from that real human to human connection that, yes, you might get in your neighborhood or church. But it's amazing how often we go throughout our day doing things that help people, even within our work, and yet not getting to see what I'm talking about, which is substantially making a difference in somehow a standard of living, a quality of living, one of the basic needs in life, and what that does for the giver, how deeply it impacts and sparks joy in them.
Now, I want to backtrack a little bit and ask you, where does this need or this desire to want to give back come from? Because yes, you were on business trips, but what is it in you that made you want to give back or do some volunteer work?
Well, it's interesting that you ask that because I really don't think when I started doing this, I was actually, that wasn't really the key point in my mind. There wasn't something in the back saying, hey, you've got to serve, you've got to give. It was a byproduct of doing it. And so while when I would set out to do any of these projects, can I help you get a wheelchair ramp here? Can I have, it was filling a short period of time. And I was thinking, okay, well, I'm making myself useful. That was more what was in my head, is using my time effectively in a useful way. I didn't think it was going to lead to other things.
Okay.
It was, so I hate to say, I really don't think it was anything about me. I think it was human nature,
The breath.
just doing that and realizing that there was this unexpected, um, transformative impact
Okay.
that made me want to do more. And we've seen it over and over with our volunteers who do this. They go on our projects, and then as soon as they come home, they're signing up for the next one. So it's really nothing in me. I have to say.
And what was it that brought you to do it abroad and in the countries you are serving currently? Because we're talking about over
Yeah.
20 countries. So what got you into those
Right.
countries?
So now when I started, I was starting wherever I had already had business and had connections, and going out into the community, specifically looking for grassroots organizations that had already organized themselves around some kind of challenge or issue that they had identified, right? Might be a women's cooperative in Guatemala where they knew they were struggling to feed their families, and how could they come together? Grassroots organizations that had already organized themselves. So I would go out looking for those, talking with them, seeing how can we help, what can we do, what's going to be safe, meaningful, interesting for our volunteers that would be genuinely beneficial to this community that they would be willing to let us do side by side with them. So that's how it started. But then over time, as we really got out there and in many more communities, now we get contacted regularly every week by organizations where people will say, hey, will you send volunteers to us? And that kickstarts the process for us of really investigating and studying them to the ability we have time um, to see what is this a good fit.
Mhm.
And it is not our, we're really not, our goals aren't how are we going to plant more flags on the map. So that's never a leading decision maker for us in terms of needing to go in more countries. That said, our volunteers will come back, and if they've already been on 10 or 11 of our program locations, and we know that that's something that really allows our volunteers to expand their global perspective, that if we are able to continue to provide more and more ways of uh, providing that expansive cultural footprint, then it's better for everyone. So at the beginning, we were proactively looking, and now we tend to look through the communities and organizations that come to
Okay.
us.
Okay. Now, how, I mean, in 1 month, how many people apply to go abroad, and how many of those really fit with what the need is out there?
So our volunteers, it's like signing up for a cruise. Uh, there's not an application process. They look at are the dates and the countries, and they sign up and they start receiving all of our materials. If there's any sort of vaccinations or visas, sometimes it depends on your own citizenship. For example, going to Cuba, whether you're from the US or Canada, will change what that process looks like. Anyway, so we give all those materials as soon as someone has registered. And it has really varied. We have several thousand people a year, although during COVID in 2020, we had probably 150, when most of our the borders were closed to us in most of our programs, and we had to look at doing things in a different way. So it's really varied. And because we have to think about sustainability, but we're not a for profit. And so we're not focused on how many numbers. We're really focused on are the projects that we're doing genuinely helping someone? Are they still there as our volunteers continue to come back? Because we have, all of our program locations, there's a group of volunteers there pretty much every other week or once a month. So we're able to have those touch points to see, are they still using this building we did? Is it working? Did we go about this the right way? Was this is it safe? Is it interesting? Is it meaningful? Um, so those are really our goalpost is
Okay.
looking at the
Well,
impact.
what are the current needs in terms of volunteer work? If we're looking at right now, November 2025.
Right. So, while some of the projects and programs are pretty straightforward and the same throughout the year. So, for example, in Guatemala, if you anybody's in participating in that program, we are installing concrete floors in the homes of single moms. And these are often a 14, 15, 16-year olds that have children and that are living in a home that is on a bare earth with no running water, no electricity, no access to health care, no transportation. Really, you see life in a different way in terms of standard of living because, of course, there are needs everywhere, even in North America. You'll find plenty of genuine needs. But it does give you a different perspective. So in Guatemala, while we're doing that, we'll often put a little green garden alongside the home where we put a big, thick foundation underneath a home. So we're looking for projects that we can finish in just a few days where there's a big difference where now they can bleach the floor and they've got a separation between them and floods and mud and so on. And we're building wattle and daub style homes in Kenya, which are kind of it's sort of like an Adobe style home, if you will. So we're doing local methods. We are working within the local framework wherever we work. In Cambodia, we're assembling and distributing wheelchairs for landmine victims, and these
Mm.
are weapons that were put there by Vietnam and the United States during the Vietnam War, and it maims, usually it's children that pick up the landmines, and they're not in the areas where our volunteers work. They're in outlying areas, so they come to Siem Reap, which is has been cleared of landmines. Anyway, so they all really vary, and then in some places like Costa Rica, where they have socialized healthcare and education, so you're not going to find people really starving the way you might in Cambodia. Um, but you will see people with far, 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 far less material wealth. And so the kinds of needs we're working on will be, we're at all of those communities in Costa Rica are centered around a soccer field, a church, a school,
A
sometimes a bar.
community. Yeah.
And so we will put in seating or covered areas for kids to change into, or we built a community center in La Flor, or there are some communities where it's a rotating list of things. We might be building emergency shelter for someone. In San Pedro de Casa, Peru, we've brought in water mains. When we have large corporate groups, we will build schools and libraries in rural Thailand. So the projects are really, really varied.
Okay. Now, if someone's going on a 1 week holiday volunteering program, um, it's a kind of a two-part question because what kind of skill does this person have? Because you've just named several things that are very broad in range, right? Concrete floor, wheelchair. We've talked about housing,
Right.
community center. What kind of skill and does a person need to apply? And also, what will they be doing within a 1 week
Mhm.
volunteer
Mhm.
trip?
So our volunteers are expected to have absolutely no skills, whether it's language skills or any sort of productive skill. So our coordinator is picking our volunteers up. These are small teams, usually 10 people, unless it's a corporate or school group that is ranged specifically. And so our coordinator is there side by side with our volunteers, along with the local communities. And we have hired local foremen that are teaching our volunteers alongside the local communities how, is this the right moisture content for the concrete, and pointing out this is how we do things. And so much of this we do by seeing, and we're doing alongside, like when we're doing these concrete floors, our foremen usually don't speak anything but the local language, but our coordinator who's there with the group is bilingual and is there the whole time if the need for translation arises. What I've seen is most people are learning how to do things by watching.
Mhm.
Right. So this is why it's very much a learning opportunity, because we don't expect our volunteers to have any skills. We have 2-year-olds, we have 90-year-olds. So really the skill level is our volunteers are learning. They're not coming in as superheroes already knowing what they're doing. And it is probably a misconception that some people have is they might think that they're coming in, with a cape on, that they're here to solve people's problems. And then they realize that the local communities usually already know whatever the issues they have are, whatever their challenges are, and they often know how they want to address them. They just needed some kind of material resources or an extra pair of hands to do that. And so that's more of what we are, because we're learning about how their lives are structured, what's important to them, what are the real challenges, what are the real beauties from that culture that you might not have seen if you were just visiting the community as a tourist to take, photos and go to their churches and museums and the beaches, but not getting to really understand what it is that makes their life different from what the volunteer's life might be like from home.
Okay. What would be your advice to the listeners who are currently wanting to jump in and help? What is it that
Mm.
what is different with globeaware that they would fulfill more
Mhm.
than any other volunteer place?
So I think what What really separates us, was really the genesis of our organization, the fact that we're designed to be short term, very short term. Most organizations prior to Globeaware were there really to serve high school and college students who might have a whole summer,
Okay.
um, or many churches that will go to a sister city, like they might have a relationship with a church in Uganda that they go to twice a year for several weeks. Um, so we're designed so that it's more plug and play. You go and you choose your date, your country, and then everything else is arranged for you so that you can show up, assuming that there's only a couple countries where there are any sort of vaccination requirements, and there's only a couple where there's any sort of special visa requirements. And we were not allowed to give out medical advice, but we over communicate about these things so that people aren't ever caught by surprise. But again, there are very few locations that actually require those, which also points to the fact that we are not necessarily in the countries that just have extreme need.
Okay.
We're not in Darfur and Somalia and Afghanistan and Palestine, even though there's extreme need there, because our volunteers are not specially trained. They don't have special qualifications. So we have to consider safety of the projects, safety of the community, whether it's war torn or if there's a disease outbreak, anything like that. So we really have to make sure that we are selecting places that are going to provide a really safe stomping ground for our participants, because we're not a paramilitary organization with machine guns. We've got to have safe environments. And those are some leading factors for us in determining what's going to be a good fit, because um, in many cases, we'll have corporate groups, student groups, where the leader or the leading committee that decided to go on this project, they may have done all the research and read everything we sent them. And then everybody else in the group will have basically just asked what they were supposed to pack.
Uh-huh.
So our process, our week is designed to help flesh that out. Our coordinator from the very beginning is doing an orientation in the mornings. We do cultural exercises designed to quickly help our volunteers see past what you might not. In Costa Rica, for example, will point out, hey, did you know that in this country we don't use mailing addresses? If somebody's mailing something, you write a paragraph describing where that place is relative to monuments, and it
Yeah.
can be, so and then in the afternoon we have reflective exercises, like let's talk about a kindness you observed. But anyway, so we're really expecting that the people who are going on our programs um, won't have a whole lot of research and background in where they're going. That said, one of the common things we will get is someone will call and say, "Hey, I really want to serve. I don't even know where to begin. I don't know what to do." And so we have those conversations all day, every day. Have you traveled before? Have you been out of the country? Do you speak any
Mhm.
other languages? Do you have any sort of heritage that you'd like to reconnect to? If somebody has never ever traveled, we're unlikely to say, hey, Cambodia or India is a good first trip. Just there's a cultural shock there if you haven't left the country. So we have those kinds of conversations all the time. And I should say, um, while the communities where we serve, many of the community members have very little in the way of, again, running water, electricity, flushing. Our volunteers do have all of that.
Okay.
Um, so they're not the Ritz Carlton, but they will have recognizable standard quality of living in that sense.
Other than the volunteer work they'll be doing during that time, what other involvement does the volunteer need to give in? Do they have to put money in? Do they have to buy their
Yeah,
plane ticket? What
yeah.
what what is the
Yes,
need to have
actually, they
there?
pay for all of it, all of it. So our programs are roughly, $1,500 for the week. It's a tax deduction against your income. It pays for everything except for airfare. That's a for-profit, separate um, business, but we can usually help people. Hey, we'll try this, try that. This is where you're flying in and out of, and it is also tax deductible against your income, assuming that it is done only in conjunction with the Global Air program. So aside from registering and paying a deposit, which is $500, I think, right now, um, and then buying your airfare, then we send materials telling people what it is, if there are any sort of visas or any other requirements. Um, and then, what else had you had asked? You had said about, so when they register, um, that's really what kickstarts everything in terms of getting all the materials so that they know what the next
What they
steps
need.
are.
Okay.
Mhm.
Before we end the podcast, can you tell us where we can find the organization and get all this information if we
Sure.
want to enroll?
Yes, and it does remind me, you'd asked what else, will be involved, and we also do, cultural and leisure activities as part of this, so if you're going to Guatemala, you're gonna see the Tikal ruins, you go to Angkor Wat in Cambodia, you're gonna see Machu Picchu and Peru, all of that, so we do weave in, cultural activities into the week as
Okay.
well, but service is the focus, but anyway, we are really everywhere anyone looks under our name, Globe Aware, w you know Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, our YouTube channel, our podcast channel, all the stuff. So the main thing is global. And we do have our phone number 214-824-4562. We have a 1-800 number. I just feel like people don't even think about 1-800 numbers anymore. But anyway,
We're
anywhere
going to
you
put
look with
all of
Global
that.
Wear, you'll find us.
We're going to put all of that in the summary below, definitely. And Kimberly, thank you so much for starting such an amazing and inspirational platform to allow women to help and people to help, but also for helping others that are in need. And when you talk about, landmines and building wheelchairs for people who've lost their limbs, or rebuilding a home because they don't have a roof over over their head, I want to thank you on behalf of anyone who you've served or helped, because you maybe are not told thank you enough. So thank you very much
Oh,
from
no,
all of
it's
them.
really our volunteers who do everything and our coordinators. And I'm just so grateful that you gave me the opportunity to chat with you about all this. So thank
Thank,
you.
thank you. To all you women out there who want to give back and are in need of fulfillment, get inspired by this possible journey for you. Giving back and being of service does help to feel seen and understood. It does help to give a sense of fulfillment and to bring you joy again if you've lost that. So this is it for us for today. Tune in every week on your favorite podcast platform. If you want to get involved with the Be Inspired community, or you want to share what kind of impact you've had on others, come and meet us on the platform at www.beguidedbeinspired.com. Let's change the world of women one conversation at a time. Keep sparkling. See you next time. Thank you. Bye.